Folks, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. I'll explain. Number one, it's absolutely free, means you don't pay a dime out of pocket. Number two, you can use creation tools to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, like I'm doing with my phone. Number three, if you want to hear it on multiple platforms, Anchor can do that for you. So you can hear it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, among others. And the thing is, you can make money without anybody listening, as little as that. And everything you need to do is to make a podcast is all here. To get started, please download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You'll be glad you did. And I'm here with Matt Charboneau of the Detroit News to preview tomorrow's game against Michigan State. Matt, welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good. A couple things I looked at right off the bat here. Number one, I'm seeing what Michigan State has done the first 2 weeks. It has been just unbelievable. I mean, especially when I see Walker in that first game go 264 and 4 touchdowns. What's the game plan going into tomorrow's matchup down at Hard Rock Stadium?
Yeah, you talk about how remarkable it is. Think what Michigan State has done running the ball the first 2 weeks, and then consider that last year they didn't have a single rushing touchdown from a running back. Kenneth Walker had 4 the first game, and another one last week against Youngstown. It's to see this team and what they've done running the ball has been impressive. Now, look, they haven't played anybody great. Northwestern's not that great this year. Youngstown State's FCS, but they've shown that they can actually kind of control the line of scrimmage, which hasn't happened the last few years. So that's got to be the goal again this week, certainly Saturday against Miami. Now, obviously, the competition ramps up significantly. Obviously, that's a strength of the Hurricanes defense. Everyone kind of knows that. So it's not going to be as easy to do, but they got to be able to, control the line of scrimmage, run the ball when they want to on their terms. They're not going to run for 326 like they did the first week at Northwestern, but that's still got to be Michigan State's primary goal. Do that, take care of the football, and that's been a pretty good formula so far for the offense. But again, that they haven't seen the level of competition yet like they're going to see this Saturday, so that'll be a big test for them.
And again, the heat and humidity is going to be an issue. It's going to be about 88 at kickoff and very humid. How is Mel Tucker prepared his team to face that kind of weather conditions in South Florida?
Yeah, actually, the fortunate part for Michigan State is the last few weeks in Michigan have been ridiculously hot and humid. So it's been a little bit of help naturally, but they've also, going back several weeks into the end of preseason camp, we're practicing indoors more often, turning up the heat, those sort of things, and, just hydrating and everything, well before they were going to head down to Florida. So, you do all the things you can. But it's still, they don't play in this every day. Certainly it's very warm early in the season up in the Midwest, but so they're used to it a little bit, but certainly probably not to this extent. It reminds me of a couple of years ago when they started at Arizona State and it was 104 at kickoff, a different heat out there, but still pretty hot. So they've done what they can, but we'll see. The depth is going to be tested for sure. They're going to need pretty much everybody they bring, I think.
Yeah, I think I was impressed when I was watching film of them the first 2 weeks. I was very impressed with Peyton Thorne. Now, I understand he was in a battle with Anthony Russo back in the spring in early camp, but Peyton Thorne, wow. He's a bigger running threat that we're going to have to deal with down here in South Florida than Chase Bryce was last week for App State.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. He got his first start late last year at Penn State, and threw for 325 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, you knew this kid had some sort of ability, but yeah, they go get a grad transfer, Anthony Russo. So it was a bit of a quarterback battle. And, we didn't get to see a ton during spring and preseason camp, but Peyton Thorne was always the first guy getting reps. But I think you're seeing now that was probably not as close a battle as some people thought, because Peyton Thorne he's been really good. He hasn't been outstanding. He hasn't had to win games, but he's been efficient. He's made good decisions. And you're right. When he's got to get out of the pocket and make something happen, he can do that. And I don't think Anthony Russo had that ability. So, they're not going to use him a ton in designed runs. Here and there they will. But he is a guy that understands when the pocket's collapsing, he has that ability to kind of get out of there and make things happen when the play's breaking down. So I think that's been an important part for him as well.
Yeah, I noticed that last week against Youngstown. I mean, the thing that really got to me, Matt, was 2 things. Another thing I saw was Jaden Reed unbelievable. First play, I know it's the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What you guys have done is score on the first play. And
Right.
Jaden Reed is a big time wide receiving threat. Because people concentrate on Walker, and rightfully so. But if you do that, it opens up the passing game, and that's where Reed can get the big play.
Yeah, and he's a guy that he was a transfer from Western Michigan a couple of years ago. He was a freshman All-American there. The other interesting thing is he and Peyton Thorne have been teammates since middle school. So there's a connection with these guys, obviously, that you might not get most times. So they just have that, that sense about each other. They know where the other person can be. Thorne knows where Reed likes the ball. But yeah, Jaden Reed certainly has big playability. He and Jalen Naylor also, two big play guys that can really kind of turn a game pretty quickly. And, again, you saw that connection with Peyton Thorne. They've got it. There's no doubt about that. So, yeah, but you mentioned Walker. Certainly being able to run the ball opens that up a lot. Because last year, Jaden Reed was there last year, and they couldn't do it much because they couldn't run the ball either. So having that balance is really kind of helping everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's what we have to do. Our defense has allowed 33.5 points a game. But granted, first game is Bama. Come on, nobody's beating Bama.
Right.
Let's be clear about that. App State last week, it's a solid football team. But, a lot of fans down here are really getting on our head coach, Manny Diaz. I have said, and many have agreed with me, tomorrow is a watershed game for Manny Diaz and this program to see where it goes. I have to think Canes are going to have to step up in this game and really stop Walker. I looked at the film all week, and I said the key to this game for me is we have to stop Walker first and make Peyton Thorne beat us with his arm. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, because like I said, Peyton Thorne's been good, but we haven't seen him really have to make plays, right? He hasn't done it under a lot of pressure. He's been protected pretty well. They haven't had to pick up, a big third down that keeps a key drive going. You mentioned scoring the first play each week. They've been playing from ahead. There hasn't been a ton of stress on this offense. I mean, look, they're playing way better than they have the last couple of years, but they haven't really been pushed to that limit yet. And this is a game where you're going to see that. If Miami is able to contain Kenneth Walker to a certain extent, can Peyton Thorne make those big throws, on, let's say it's a 3rd and 6 and you need to keep a drive going and the game's tied? Can he do that? We just haven't seen that yet. So I think that's the thing about both teams. We're still a little unsure where we're at, right? I mean, Michigan State's rolling, but, then you wonder, are the teams they've beaten any good? And same with Miami. Look, everyone's going to get beat up by Alabama. You mentioned that. And App State doesn't stink. So, is everything as bad as maybe some Miami fans think? Probably not. So I think this is a huge game for both that we're really going to find out where each team stands.
Absolutely.
Is either team exactly what we think of them? And I think this is going to tell us.
Oh, no question. When I see Peyton, again, you look at a lot of things. I think the way people are ripping our offensive coordinator, and rightfully so, to be honest, down here, because it's like we're not moving the ball. I think for me, the game's going to be won down in the trenches. That's my take. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. And again, like I said, that Michigan State offensive line, that was the biggest surprise for us so far, is that they played as well as they have. And again, they're going to be tested really this week. I mean, do we find out?
Humidity is no joke.
Yeah, and can they control the offensive? Can they control that line of scrimmage against a team like this? That's going to be massive. If they can't, we're going to be looking at a Michigan State offense we've looked at for the last few years that can't sustain drives, can't put points on the board. They're going to be upset as Miami fans are down here with their offensive coordinator probably. So,
yeah, a lot of staff, and I've said this is a watershed game for Manny Diaz. And could I say the same thing about Mel Tucker?
In a sense, if I think if he was further into his tenure here, you would. But what I think it is, if Michigan State manages to win this game, then you start to think, wow, this guy's really got it turning around a lot quicker than anybody thought. Wow. In that sense. Now he's going to sit there and tell you, no, every game's the same. One's not bigger than the other.
Let's be honest, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. This is not the same as playing Youngstown State last week because everyone expects you to win. You go to Miami on the road against a Power 5 team that is ranked, has Heisman hopeful, all this. You go and pull off a game like that. Now people really start to pay attention and wonder, what has Mel Tucker got going on there? Like if he loses this game, it's not like it's a rail. Yeah, I mean, he's in year 2. They're going to be patient here. He's in a little different spot than Manny Diaz. But that flip side is if they manage to win it, what that could mean to this program and how that could propel them could be it could get
especially
this thing
going
moving
into
along.
Big Ten play, because you got Ohio State there, you got Penn State, you got a surprising Rutgers this year.
Yeah, Rutgers is no joke. I mean, you get Greg Schiano back there. I mean, look, Rutgers came into Michigan State and won last year. Yeah. I mean, granted, Michigan State turned the ball over 7 times.
It was a COVID year, let's be honest.
Yeah, and it was a weird year. But I'm telling you, that Big Ten East, it's a tough road. I mean, Indiana's struggling a bit already, but think about how they played last year. There's not a lot of easy games in the Big Ten East. So, yeah, I mean, if this is a win for Michigan State, I think, man, Mel Tucker, who knows where this thing's going at this point, because the optimism and the momentum feels like it's there, but I don't think anyone's really 100% buying just yet. If a win comes Saturday, you'll see a lot of people jumping on board.
Oh, yeah. Now, until you get the Big Ten play, because then, Big Ten plays a whole different ball game. Because now you get into the cold, like October into November, then you start getting into cold weather. That becomes an issue.
It does. But look, this is where Michigan State, that's what Mel Tucker wants. He wants to be the tough nose, meat and potatoes kind of thing. And, if we got to beat up and slog our way through the Big Ten, so be it. Does he have the personnel for that yet? Maybe not quite. I mean, he's got some work to do there still based on what Mark D'Antonio left in terms of talent, but he's turning it around pretty quickly. So I think they'll actually relish getting into the Big Ten play and avoiding whatever temperatures they're going to endure in Miami Saturday.
Oh yeah, and there's no doubt about it. I mean, when you talk about Michigan State, I mean that team. I mean, we're gonna know what it takes tomorrow. Like I said, we're gonna know a lot about this team, both teams tomorrow, really. But really, when you talk down, I take it you're in Miami already.
Yes, yeah, we're here.
You could hear the talk down there regarding our fans, the fan base, and that's been trouble. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. The thing you have to look at is people are ripping Manny Diaz down here, and rightfully so, as well as our offensive coordinator. And I think I always say a dangerous Miami team is a team that could come out ready to play this ball game. I look at Melt. Now, granted, we're not the powerhouse we once were, as you're well aware. But I remember guys you had years ago like Lorenzo White, Cedric Irvin. They're going to be a lot of Spartans down there from how I understand it. But we're still a dangerous team. Now, how has Mel Tucker simulated De'Aaron King this week with a scout quarterback?
Well, that's been tough, and it's really they haven't been able to. I mean, let's be honest, there's not a lot of guys like that running around. I mean, they've used a few guys. They got a walk-on receiver who played quarterback in high school. They've used a lot during the week as your scout team quarterback. But that, even if you have a guy who's really talented to help you out, it's not going to be the same as getting out in the game and really, kind of experience it. And I think everyone knows De'Aaron King hasn't played great the first 2 weeks, but that doesn't change, the player he is and the potential he has to change games. I mean, it's been difficult this week for them to simulate that. So not having a guy like that, it's more of focusing on your fundamentals and everything you've been taught and what you're supposed to, use as a read, whether you're playing zone or man or what your keys are. It's one of those things where the focus is going to have to be there on detail because they haven't had a guy in practice this week that's going to make them see something they're going to see on Saturday. So that's been a big challenge, having someone to kind of give you that look because they don't really have that guy.
No question. I mean, I noticed the one thing, there are a couple of matchups I'm watching this week. One, I want to see our cornerback, Tyreek Stevenson, go against Reed. That's going to be one matchup I watch. But the big matchup I'm going to watch is really our offensive line in the running game. That struggled the first 2 weeks of the season. I think for you guys, you have a good defensive line. I've seen that. Can you guys stop our running game?
Yeah, I think
we're only going to have Cam Harris.
Yeah,
and we're having possibly two freshmen, Cody Brown and Thad Franklin.
But I think it's a fair question because if you're a Michigan State fan and you're feeling great about the way the offense is played, you're probably feeling a little uncertain about the defense. When you look at the first 2 weeks, against Northwestern, they gave up a couple big plays. in the back end. But then last week against Youngstown, an FCS program, they gave up a couple touchdown drives that were 10, 11 plays long, and they were finding some room to run the ball. Typically, Michigan State is a good run defense, and their interior of that defensive line is very good. However, they were missing a couple defensive ends last week. Veteran guys, Drew Beasley, Drew Jordan, a transfer from Duke. We'll see. I think they're going to be back this week. It's a little up in the air. And their linebacking core is almost all new. I mean, they got Quavaris Crouch out of Tennessee, out of the portal. A redshirt freshman named Cal Halliday is starting. Guys that don't
I understand you have 20 transfers, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, they brought in 20 total, 15 from Power 5 schools.
Wow.
Transfers in. They had about 27 transfers out. To say the roster changeover was significant would be an understatement.
Yes.
But look, in this day and age, it's a way to quickly upgrade your talent, and they did that. They needed to because the talent was deficient. And there's positions, though, now where they're counting on guys that are new to the program to play a big role, those linebackers being one of them. They're using them in the back end. They got a couple of corners, Ronald Williams from Alabama, Chester Kimbrough from Florida, that are playing big roles on this team. And you've seen a few, mistakes in the back end that were really more miscommunication, maybe not being lined up right. And some of that's to be expected when these guys have only been around a couple months. So that's still a big concern for this team. Can they consistently stop teams running the ball? If they're able to do that, they're in good shape. If Miami is able to get out, start to control that line of scrimmage and make some things happen on the ground, it could be a long day for that Michigan State defense.
Yeah, and especially in that heat. I always say the fourth quarter. See, what we prided ourselves on all these years is like being fresh in the fourth quarter while teams got tired in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
The question for me is, can Michigan State be fresh in the fourth quarter in those kind of conditions?
Yeah, and I think, again, another fair question, because I think the biggest concern for this team, especially defensively, is depth. I mean, they got a lot of guys, but we haven't seen a lot of guys get it done. It's unproven depth, right? So if you figure you got use a lot of guys in the back and a lot of guys up front. I mean, that defensive line is the one place I'd feel confident that they have quality depth. When you go to the linebackers and the secondary, you're a little unsure, and they're going to need all those guys. So if you're going 2-3 deep, especially late in the game, and you got guys out there that aren't ready, that could spell trouble. So I think that's a huge concern for Michigan State going into this game.
Oh yeah, no question about that. I've seen that. I mean, to me, it's going to come. Here are my keys to the game. One, stop Walker. That you got to stop Walker first. Number two, you got to make sure Jalen Reed doesn't have a big game. We got to contain him. Number three, we have to stop. We have to control the line of scrimmage, and we got to get the turnover chain out at least twice. Is that a concern for Michigan State that the chain comes out twice, at least twice?
Yeah, I mean, if
they score off those turnovers.
Yeah, if it does, I mean, absolutely. I mean, so far, look, last year Michigan State was a turnover machine. I mean, they turned the ball over all the time. This year, through it's 2 games, obviously, they haven't done that. There's been 2 fumbles they've lost, and both were late in each game when you had backups in. So they haven't turned the ball over. Like I said, Peyton Thorne's made really good decisions with the ball. He hasn't tried to force much in there. Kenneth Walker's been good hanging on to the ball. So it hasn't been an issue yet, but it's one of those things that it has been quite recently for this team. So if that starts to pop up here and that gold chain's coming out, again, that's the same for any team. You start turning the ball over too much, it's tough to win.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Michigan State has the firepower to overcome, say, 2-3 turnovers. You start getting that number, and you're in rough shape.
Yeah, that's very bad. Other thing is the turnover is like Walker against the defense. Like I said, when we played Carolina last year, we gave up almost 800 yards rushing to Carolina. Our people rip us this week for saying that the run defense was terrible. It's gotten a little better, but Walker's going to test and I think you have 4 backs, if I'm not mistaken, besides Walker and Simmons.
Yeah, they got some depth there. It's a little uncertain right now because they lost a kid, Elijah Collins, who 2 years ago was their leading rusher, and then dealt with COVID last year. And then he came back last week, he had 3 runs of about 9-10 yards apiece, scored on a 20-yard screen, and then hurt his ankle. So it's a tough break for him. So you're looking at Walker and Jordan Simmons, who ran for 121 last week, are your main guys. Harold Joyner, who's an Auburn transfer, is probably more of a third down guy, but he got banged up that first week. So it's really been Walker and Simmons, but they've got guys there too. Again, we talk about the heat. If you got to go deep, you got some guys. And then Connor Hayward, again, a fifth-year senior who's playing tight end now, more of an H-back. They use him all over the place. In a pinch, you could have him running the ball as well too. So they got a few options there, but maybe with Collins likely out, it's a little bit thinner than they probably would have hoped.
Yeah, think about this. I've noticed something here. You've held leads for longer this season, a total of 119 minutes and 37 seconds out of a possible 120 minutes than you did for all 7 games last year.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Michigan State is aiming to start 3-0 for the first time since 2015. The thing, and think of on the road, this is a true road game in the state of Florida for the first time since 1988 when you went to Tallahassee and lost to FSU, and they're 0-4 in the state of Florida.
Yeah, and that's why I say this isn't like any other game. I mean, Mel Tucker can say it all day. I think everyone understands that it's big for a lot of reasons, and that being one of them. You're right. I mean, I didn't even think of that stat of not being behind in a game. The other thing is, Kenneth Walker ran for more yards in the first game than any Michigan State running back ran for all of last season.
Yeah, I heard that.
All of last season.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look, we know last year was a weird year, but they had no running attack whatsoever. I think Jordan Simmons had like 220 yards for the whole year. And Walker had that, by the fourth quarter. So to see the turnaround in this offense has been remarkable. And again, they haven't played, the Super Bowl champions, but here's the thing. They didn't do these things against bad teams the last couple of years. So, anything we've seen so far is at least giving you an idea that they're on the right track. And, we'll say it until we're blue in the face. Saturday's game against Miami, we'll tell the story.
Definitely a watershed game for both schools, but especially down here where the fans have gotten on Manny Diaz big time, really for the last couple of years. But Matt, I'm going to get you out of here on this. Give me a prediction for tomorrow.
Oh man, I have gone back and forth. I've decided to go with Michigan State 30-27. And the reason why is because I don't think their offense is a fluke, only because they've had some big plays, sure. But if you look at Kenneth Walker after his 75-yarder to open the season, the rest of that game, he ran 189 yards and 3 touchdowns on about 21 carries. To me, the offense is showing me that they can sustain what they're doing. It's not just big fluke plays. Now, my apprehension in me putting at 50-50 is I'm still unsure of that defense. I don't know if they're going to be able to be consistently good against the run or if they're going to give up too many big plays. Some of those things happen, and this thing flips real quick. So I decided to go on that side of Michigan State for that. I could easily be convinced many other things. I don't feel great about this one, but that's the pick I went with.
I'm going to go, Matt. I'm going to go 30, 33, 28 Miami. I think this is a watershed game for Manny Diaz, our head coach.
Yeah.
I think this is a moment like, hey, I've said it on Twitter this week. It's either put up or it's shut up time. You have to step up in big moments. He has not beaten a quality Power 5 non-conference opponent in his tenure here.
Yeah.
He's come close, but I know the Florida game 2 years ago when his first game comes to mind. But, you can't be losing to team. And the low point was losing to Florida International and the weekend shut out in the bowl game by Louisiana Tech. But this is a watershed moment. Manny has to show me he has to win a game against a quality opponent, and Michigan State is a very good opponent. So I'm going to go 33-28 Miami. So that's my prediction. Matt, thank you. Enjoy South Florida. Enjoy the game tomorrow.
You got it. Thanks, Dan.
Bye-bye.